Instagram versus Pinterest, which one is actually better for your business? People usually go on Pinterest to escape all the social media activity and the noise. It's kind of like a quiet haven. Now, on Instagram, it is a platform where, because it's social, you create touch points for people to interact with your brand. Whereas on Pinterest, there is no obligation to engage. You can actually post and ghost. Now, if you wanted to hear my advice, so whether you're on Instagram and wondering if the grass is greener on Pinterest or vice versa, stick around because I am going to show you the pros, the cons, and everything in between so that you can figure out which platform is actually best for you and your business. All right, so let's kick it off the first. Welcome to Daring Forward, where we feature ordinary women doing extraordinary things and learn practical lessons and action steps to help you live courageously. I'm your host, Sahar. Now, if you're ready, let's dare forward. What is the difference between using Instagram versus Pinterest, and which one is actually better for your business? I get asked so many times by entrepreneurs who are usually on Instagram and usually don't know or understand how to use Pinterest, and they don't know how the platforms differ. So whether you're on Instagram and wondering if the grass is greener on Pinterest or vice versa, stick around because I am going to show you 9 comparison points for you to know the difference between Instagram and Pinterest, the pros, the cons, and everything in between, so that you can figure out which platform is actually best for you and your business. All right, so let's kick it off. The first point that I wanted to talk about is user intent. Now, when people go on Instagram, people are usually going on there to kind of kill time, be entertained, and socialize and connect with people. When people go on Pinterest, it's a completely different platform. People do not use Pinterest to socialize. They use it to kind of switch off and escape and be inspired. People also use Pinterest like a search engine. So think more like Google or YouTube, where people go and they're trying to research something to either figure out how to do, or people are usually on there to research to buy. So people make a lot of buying decisions by going on Pinterest. So that's the 2 main differences between user intent when it comes to Instagram and Pinterest. One is for entertainment and socializing. The other one is more for inspiration and learning and researching to buy. The second difference between Instagram and Pinterest is the social engagement element. Now, both platforms have the capacity where you can engage with people. So both Instagram and Pinterest allow you to DM people and send messages. You can leave comments on Instagram posts or Pinterest pins. However, you'll find that people use them entirely differently on each platform. So on Instagram, because it is a social platform, people will leave comments, will have discussions, will DM each other. Whereas with Pinterest, the main activity that people are usually doing, they're either saving pins or they're clicking on them and leaving the website, or clicking on them to view the pins to learn more. So how does this affect you as a business or brand? Well, on Instagram, it means that when people are commenting on your content, you have an obligation to reply. Otherwise, you're just going to give that offish vibe of we're here, but we're not really present, right? Because it is a social platform, people want to engage. Whereas on Pinterest, there is no obligation to engage. You can actually post and ghost. And this is actually something that I tell my clients and I teach my students. You have no obligation to engage on the platform if you don't want to, because that's not really what people are looking for anyway. People usually go on Pinterest to escape all the social media activity and the noise. It's kind of like a quiet haven. The third thing that I want you to be aware of is the setup. Now, Pinterest and Instagram are very different when it comes to their setup. Instagram is very intuitive. It's usually similar to all other social media platforms like, say, TikTok or whatever else is out there. You just set up profile details. It's very simple, intuitive. If you've done it once on any other social media platform, it's usually similar on Instagram. So it's very easy to set up. Pinterest is slightly more technical when it comes to setup. So beyond setting up your profile, my recommendation is that if you are a business, you should set up a business account. That is not a given with Instagram. You could have a creator account, you could have a personal account, but still run it as a business. But with Pinterest, you absolutely do want to set up a business account, because that is what's going to enable you to connect your Pinterest account to your business website. And if you want to upload content from your website, like if you're a product-based business, you want to upload all your products, you absolutely can. And you can set up a shop on Pinterest as well if you didn't know. you need to set up a business account so that you can connect it. So because of that, it is a bit more technical, which usually scares a lot of people away, but it's really not that complicated. What Pinterest does is it provides you a piece of code that you need to upload onto the back end of your website. And you can just test run it and make sure that you've claimed your website. And then once you've done that, then you can basically start uploading content, and all your content will be up to date as you update your website. So that is the benefit of having a Pinterest account, is that you can immediately connect the content on your website to Pinterest. Whereas with Instagram, it is a lot more straightforward. You just have to put in external links and link people and send them to your website. But I'll talk a bit more about linking in my next point. Okay, so my fourth comparison between Pinterest and Instagram is their external linking. Now, when it comes to Pinterest, things have changed quite a bit in this area. So prior to 2020, people would upload standard pins, which is equivalent to Instagram posts. And when you uploaded the pin, you would put a title, a description, and you would add a link. And what was great about Pinterest is that all these standard pins would have links where people could click on the pin and it would take them to whatever link that you put in there. So what has happened now is that although the standard pins are available, what Pinterest currently is prioritizing at the time of this recording is idea pins, which is equivalent to Instagram stories. However, these stories don't disappear on Pinterest. So idea pins are very similar to Instagram stories, but they stay on your profile. They do not disappear. And when they first introduced these, you were not able to link them. And currently, there's still a lot of accounts that are not able to link their idea pin. But Pinterest has introduced a new feature now where they're introducing idea pins that do have links so people can click on them and leave the platform and go view your website. This is something that they're currently running out. So some accounts have them, some do not. So if you don't have it yet, just hang tight. It should be coming your way soon. And then the other place where people can find your links is by going on your profile. Now, I'd also like to add that if you do have any products, you can set up a shop on Pinterest. And so people can directly shop your product on the Pinterest platform without leaving the platform. That's a positive for anyone who has products, whether they're digital or product-based. You can absolutely do that. Now, as for Instagram, you can have your links in the famous link in bio, which is the link that you'll find on your profile. You can also add links on your stories now. This was something that was only reserved for people who had 10,000 followers or more in the past, but now you absolutely can. You don't need that many followers for you to be able to use links in your stories. And then another place you can share links is in your DMs. I also want to add that you can include links in your Pinterest DMs. This is something that a lot of people don't use and don't know because people don't engage one-on-one usually on Pinterest. So it's not an obvious choice for people to do, but you can include links in your DMs. So those are the two main differences when it comes to external linking between the two platforms. Okay, fifth point, let's talk about discoverability. On Instagram, people can discover your account in various different ways. One of the most popular ways in the past has been through hashtags. So if you use the most popular hashtags that aren't too competitive, you could end up in people's search feeds. And if your content is resonating with people, that's kind of how your account grows. Now things are slightly shifting on Instagram. People are being discovered through Reels. The caveat to everything that I'm saying is creating content that actually resonates with people. So that is always going to be one of the most important things you do. So back to the Reels. When you're creating Instagram Reels, one of the ways for your Reels to go viral is through using trending audios. And if you use that audio and pair it with the video that you create, that gives you a good chance of being discovered and found out by more people that are outside of your audience. And the great news about Instagram now as well is that they are paying attention to the keywords and the words that you're using in your descriptions, in the titles that you put in your content. They're turning it more of into an SEO kind of based social media platform. So if you're adding words that people are searching for and using them in your videos and writing them in your descriptions, then it's more likely that Instagram will promote your content to the people looking for them. And that's another way to be discovered on Instagram. So that is discoverability on Instagram in a nutshell. Whereas on Pinterest, it has always been about the keywords. They tried to test out hashtags for a period, but it kind of didn't work out. So The way for you to grow on Pinterest is for you to understand Pinterest search engine optimization. That's what SEO stands for. And all it is just how you use keywords. So, what are people putting in the search bars and what are they searching for? What are the words that they're putting in? And the ones that are the most popular, if you simply just take those keywords that people are using and put them in your profile, your boards, your pins, then that gives you a higher chance of your content being discovered on the platform. And this is something that I always say to all my students as well as some clients is that if you don't use keywords on Pinterest, there is no way for your content to be discovered. So you have to absolutely nail your SEO strategy on the head. Next up is brand awareness or building your brand. Now, on Instagram, it is a platform where, because it's social, you create touch points for people to interact with your brand. Every time someone engages with you and you engage back with them, and how you do that makes people feel a certain way. And if you respond to people's questions, if you add value on the platform, then you build a stronger brand. People feel good about interacting with your business and your brand. So that's what's great about Instagram. The downside to the social element of Instagram is cancel culture. And you as a brand or a business do have to be careful of how you show up online, making sure that what you're saying isn't clashing with current events. So these are all things you have to pay attention to. The risk of being canceled online is there. That's not going to go away as long as it's a social element and there is free speech. That is going to be something that you have to consider. Now, let's flip the table and look at Pinterest and brand building on that platform. Now, Pinterest as a company is very, very intentional about creating a safe online space that is positive and inspirational. Even if you go on their websites, you'll see that that's the main thing that they're going for. Recently, I think it was in 2021, they even banned weight loss ads because of the messaging. They want to promote positive body image. So they are a very inclusive platform, and that's something that I do love about them. And then the other element that you need to add into that mix, like I said earlier, is that it's not a socially engaging type of platform. There might be some engagement on there, but it's not the main feature. It's like a side note. People usually go on Pinterest to escape. It's their personal me time. So by virtually being on Pinterest as a business and a brand, you are going to be seen as an inspirational business or brand simply by being on Pinterest, because that's what people use that space for, to be inspired. So how are you going to add value and inspire your future customers on Pinterest? That's something for you to think about. And of course, the benefit of it not being such a heavily social platform is that you don't have to deal with the toxic nature of cancel culture that you might find on other social media platforms. So that is always a plus on Pinterest if that's something that you just don't want to deal with. Now, this point is a huge one, which is content creation, because a lot of people think, and I'm all for repurposing, by the way, but a lot of people think that whatever I create on Instagram, I'm just going to dump it on Pinterest. Whatever I create on Pinterest, I'm just going to dump it on Instagram, right? Remember that there are two different platforms that are used differently. Your customer can be on both Instagram and Pinterest. How they approach the platforms, very different. And so you have to position your content depending on how people use the platforms. So knowing that Instagram is a social platform where people go on there to be entertained, if you want to add value, you can absolutely add value by simply being entertaining. You can add value, you can teach, but whatever you're doing, as long as you're adding value in a way that has an entertainment element, because that's ultimately what people are on there for, your content is going to do really well. So that's why you'll find on Instagram, there's a lot of marketers that teach you how to edutain, which is educate and entertain at the same time, because, people are on there to be entertained primarily. Now, if they learn something along the way, then that's definitely a plus. So you always have to think creatively, how can I edutain? How can I not just teach a tutorial, but do it in a way that is engaging, that is fun, that grabs their attention in a way that's not just a straightforward tutorial. Now, on Pinterest, on the other hand, people are on there not to socialize. Remember, people are on there to be inspired. They're researching, wanting to buy potentially. And so you don't have to edutain on Pinterest. And I will even say this, a lot of times when people want to repurpose the Instagram content into Pinterest, I specifically tell them not to include any content that is simply entertaining. So any funny reels, funny videos, even same thing with TikTok. If you have any content that's purely entertaining, people aren't really going on Pinterest for that. They're not searching for entertaining content. They're looking to figure out how to do something, or they're researching to buy. And so how are you going to simply add value? And in that way, Pinterest is simpler in terms of creating the content. It is a heavily creative platform. So it is important that you bring that beauty element and have your content look, it has to look pretty and presentable on Pinterest. That's typically what does really well. But add value in a way that is straightforward and to the point, and make sure to use those keywords, and you're going to have a solid content strategy on Pinterest. Now let's talk about content shelf life. This is one of my favorite reasons of being on Pinterest. When you create content on Pinterest, this is something that I would like to let you know off the bat, and this is what I tell my clients and students as well. Pinterest is a slow burn. It's a long haul kind of platform. You're not going to have quick wins like in a week. It's a slow and steady platform. Having said that, that is why it can take a while for your content to take off. But once it does, that content shelf life is totally worth the wait, because you will be able to gain traffic or sales or have eyeballs on your content and your business for weeks, months, and even years. When I used to be a blogger and I had my pins finally get indexed and ranked on Pinterest, I wouldn't create any more new content for like a couple of years. The pins would still send traffic my way. So in that way, it's a great win. Whereas the content shelf life on Instagram is definitely less than Pinterest. However, people are now seeing with Reels that their Reels spike after weeks or a few days. But once it's had its run, it's had its run. Whereas with Pinterest, once you create it, it just continues to bring on traffic and it stays on the platform. So it's definitely a win there. So if you want to know which platform wins in terms of content shelf life, it would definitely be Pinterest. And then the final point I wanted to make a comparison on is the ads. Instagram has its own ads, which is connected. It's all part of the Facebook advertising framework. Pinterest also has its own advertising system. Now, the difference between the two is this. Instagram is known for its interruption-based advertising, which basically means you're just on the platform, you're scrolling, living your best life, minding your own business, and then you're bombarded with ads that have nothing to do with anything. Maybe it's just your interest, or someone is targeting you for your behavior on the platform somehow. So these ads keep interrupting and showing up, kind of like watching TV. You didn't ask for it, it's just coming your way. That is one thing about Instagram ads. The other thing about them is they can be quite expensive in comparison to Pinterest. And because Facebook and Instagram heavily rely on your behavior and how you use the platform and other websites and how you interact with them, they were affected heavily by the Apple privacy updates back in 2021, which has meant that all the advertisers, we had to figure out a way of how to kind of start advertising in a way that's different. So it was affected by those changes. Now compare that to Pinterest. Pinterest is what you call search advertising, which simply means that yes, there are ads on Pinterest, but they are based on what you're searching for. So if you go in and you're looking for an autumn outfit, you're going to be targeted based on that search. So it's going to be relevant to what you're looking for the majority of it. So because of that, it doesn't cost as much, because you're getting people who are interested in the ads that you're providing because they were looking for those solutions through the search. So because of that, they weren't affected as much like Facebook and Instagram were with the Apple privacy updates, because they're mostly based on what people are searching for. You might not be at the point where you're ready to advertise right now, but in the future you are, or if you want to look into advertising options, those are the differences between advertising on Pinterest and advertising on Instagram. So those are the main differences that I wanted to compare between Instagram and Pinterest, so that you can now sit down and decide for yourself which platform is best for you and your business. Now, to help you make this decision, I wanted you to ask yourself these questions. What skill sets do I have? What personality traits do I have? And what are my business goals? Because once you ask these questions, then you can sit down and actually compare the two platforms and see which one is a better fit for you. Now, if you wanted to hear my advice, I think Instagram is a great place to build community, to, strengthen your brand, because people will be able to interact with you. But it's also a place where you have to be willing to show up and do the work. There is slightly more hustle on Instagram than there is on Pinterest, because there's an element where you have to show up regularly, you have to engage with people. And so that's something that you need to be aware of. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, being very intentional with your messaging, because there is the possibility of cancel culture affecting you and your brand. So that is something that you have to pay attention to on Instagram. As for Pinterest, I think Pinterest is a great place if you want to post and ghost, if you don't want the hassle and the hustle of showing up consistently daily, perhaps on camera or engaging with people. You're maybe more of an introvert or more of a type of person who likes to create in isolation and then just put your work out into the world, and you want more automation, then I would say Pinterest is a better platform for that. So if you're stuck on time and you feel like, look, I don't have all the time in the world to do all this marketing, I need to pick one platform, then I would say choose the best one that's for you. But I also think that it's quite powerful if you use both, because Pinterest is more of a long-term strategy and that can bring you returns and automation in the future, but it's not something that you're going to see quick wins with. Instagram is a great platform to use to kind of help you fill in that gap of the quick wins. If you want to make sales quickly, if you want to know questions people have or objections people have with your product or your service, it's kind of a great place to kind of build that community and find out what's the word on the ground that you're not going to get as much from Pinterest. So that's it for this episode. I hope that you found this comparison helpful. Let me know what you think in terms of Pinterest or Instagram. Which one are you using? Let me know if you're watching on YouTube in the comments. If you have any questions to do with Pinterest versus Instagram, Instagram versus Pinterest, or if you're listening to the podcast, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or at info@sahartosaj.com. I would love to help you out and answer any questions that you may have. Thanks for tuning in today. All the resources mentioned in the show are linked below if you're watching on YouTube, and linked in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, then I want to invite you to help us spread our message by choosing one of 4 ways. 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast. 2, leave a review if you're listening to the podcast. It really helps. 3, let me know in the comments below what the key takeaways were for you in today's episode. And 4, share this episode with one friend who could use a little bit of courage today. And if you want to binge our episodes, may I suggest you watch this episode right here if you're watching on YouTube. That's it. Until next time, don't forget to live courageously and dare forward.